I'm so glad you guys could join us today. You are in for a treat. We're going to take this discussion on power just a little bit deeper. You'll get a chance to eavesdrop on us, having just a girlfriend conversation about power, power from different perspectives. We may talk a little bit about the lesson that you studied this past week or so, and then we'll get into a little bit more about what power means to us. So stay tuned and keep listening. Why don't we start out with just a discussion about what does power mean? What is power to you, and how would you, in one sentence, kind of define power? What would you say?
So for me, power is confidence. Knowing that you know, and not being moved by what's going on around you. So just knowing that you know and being on the right path, the path that you are destined to be on. For me, that's power.
Good, good. Tell me a little bit about you.
So my name is Sheila Person Scott. I have been in banking for most of my life, my adult life, and have seen power play out in organizations. So I've been in corporate America for a long time and have seen power play out a lot.
Good. Corporate America is going to give us an interesting perspective on power.
Yes.
All right. And what about you, Sonja?
My definition of power is the ability to influence, the ability to control what's going on around me, the ability to influence those that are around me, the situation that is around me, be it a physical power, spiritual power, is however God is choosing to move through me. That is where I find, and that's how I define power. Having been an at-home mom for the last 21 years has been very interesting to determine how to exert that power, having been in corporate America for so long, and then making the switch to being a mom, whereas I was used to exerting power in the workforce. Now I had to bring that home. And you would think that it would be very easy to manage a bunch of little people around your house, and you do have a lot of power with a lot of little people around your house. The interesting thing is how they perceive your power.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the power. They influence me. They make things move. And so it's been great to move into the philanthropic and cultural centers around the city, and to now use the influence that I used to have from a corporate standpoint. Now I've been able to use that serving on boards and having influence there. And so for me, being able to use that power, still use it for the good, and demonstrate that you can be a woman of God and do things around this city. And so it's been great.
Yeah. I think that impact on the community and our ability as women to have influence in the community is something that sometimes we overlook.
Absolutely.
Pastor Dottie?
Yeah, power, when I listen to my sister talk about confidence, it's very important to have that confidence. Power, if I had to just think of it at one time, I would think of strength. The strength to do things with the confidence to do it. I think of faith when I think about power, because I go back to the scriptures. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so therefore the strength comes in, and if I forget that scripture or forget what the Lord has said, it can cause my power level to drop. But knowing that I can stand on that promise, it gives me the strength to move on and do what I need to do with that power that He has promised me.
I think you guys have summed it up pretty good. I think when I think of power, I also think of influence. I think of so many times the difference between authority and power, because sometimes people can have authority, but they still don't have any power.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but as women, for us to understand that and know that power is not in a title, it's not even always in a position. Sometimes it can come from other places. And I know in the Bible study, I talk about the power of Naaman's slave girl. Because she's captive, she's been taken captive, and she's in this household, and she's serving the wife of Naaman. And so she doesn't really have a title. She's pretty much come, and she's been taken and brought to this place captive. But as we look at the story unfold, we realize that Naaman would never have known about Elisha if he hadn't heard from the slave girl.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the power that we have that's not related to a title, the power of relationship, because her relationship to his wife is what caused her to say, and her relationship to him. She felt bad. She was like, if he would only go, I know somebody who could heal him.
Right.
So that relationship created the opportunity for her to, what I call, have the power of a testimony, of saying that I know this person. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it reminds me of, for some reason, younger women are attracted to me. They come to me and ask questions. And, recently it was this young woman who has some financial difficulties. And I actually sent her to the park to go to the financial support that was here. And just to be able to sit down and witness to her about what God would have her to do. Because she brought me lunch. She couldn't afford to buy me lunch, but I went to the counter and she had paid for my lunch. And so just telling her that she doesn't have to win people over. People love her just because we are in relationship. Now, you don't have to prove to me that you love me by buying me things. You just need to, all you have to do is be there, to show up, to call, and I will do the same. And so sometimes, and she knew me when I was very senior in the organization, and she actually wrote a letter to me and asked me if I would talk with her because she was afraid to come to me, not because of who I was, but because of my position. And because of her courage to do that, we have been friends since then. And so I think relationship, the power to even engage or want to have a relationship, for me to say, Lady Kim, I really admire you and I want to spend some time with you. It takes courage, which for me is another form of power, for someone to do that. And so, she now has access to things that she didn't have access to based on our relationship.
Yeah. Relationship can make all the difference in the world. And I think about the relationship that Mary had with Jesus, because we talk about that, and the influence there of relationship, because I don't think that he intended to do that first miracle.
Right.
I think that his mother being there saying, they don't have any more wine, because she knew something about him that nobody else knew. And that was because of relationship, because we don't hear that he's done anything before then.
That's
but
right.
obviously, because of their relationship, she knew something more. Let's talk a little bit about that type of relationship and how that relates to power.
The thing with Mary, and it has always been a factor, is that she respected Jesus, number one. And before she even made a suggestion to put the pots out, she went to him, and he made it very clear that my time has not yet come.
Right.
So he wanted her to know that I respect you as my mom, but I respect my father even more.
Right.
So we're talking about a relationship. That's a powerful relationship. I respect you as mom, but my Father in heaven means more. I want to respect what he wants me to do. It's not my time to do this yet. But the fact that that was his mom, he did not go against what the Lord has said.
Right.
He only said, it's not my time yet. And she said, do what he says do.
Right.
So he never went against his father. So the relationship stayed intact with my mom and with my father.
Yeah.
And God did the rest.
I think I looked at that, and so then there's the black mom in me.
Right.
And so you could see when she's going to him, and you could see your child, for those of us that have sons, you could see him looking at her like, Mama, this right now, it's just not, no, I don't want to do that. Why are we involved?
Right.
This isn't our business.
Right.
So why are you involved? And, for me, I did the black mama. I'd have looked at him. What'd you say? And she then, because she understood as a mother, I understand my child and how special he is. Listen to what he said to do. And I'm sitting there thinking, he is God. He is God Almighty, maker of
Right.
heaven and earth, of all things, seen and unseen. And even in his love, he was willing to humble himself to his
Yes.
mother.
Right.
Yes.
And he's God.
Right.
And he understood there's a relationship and the respect of the relationship and the power of a mom. And I love my mama just enough. You know, I'm not supposed to be doing this right now.
Right.
Okay, but that's my mama.
Right.
Mama said do this. And he respected her power as his mother. And I think it's a great example for all of us to see,
Yeah.
especially as we're raising children. Like, I'm not asking you to do something that I think is bad,
Right.
but as your mother,
Right.
do you understand? I got your back.
Right.
Just do what I asked you to do.
And the thing is, she understood that he had the power
Yes.
Right.
to
To
do it.
Right.
And sometimes we as parents, we have to understand sometimes that our children have power.
They got
as,
gifts.
as Lady Kim said, you don't have the title,
Right.
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 but you have wisdom.
Right.
And wisdom says it all. If you got wisdom, a child can have wisdom
Right.
Right.
and can give you the correct answer.
Right.
Mom, why are you doing this? Dad, why are you doing
Right.
this?
And there's power in that.
But that's power to have wisdom.
Right.
So with Mary and her son Jesus, they respected each
other.
other's
Right.
power.
I just love when she just comes to him and she states the problem.
Right.
Because I think if it was me, I would have done more than state the problem. I would have said, I would have said, fix it.
Yeah.
But she didn't tell him to fix it.
Right.
She just stated what the problem was. And I think sometimes when we have power and influence, we tend to want to tell somebody, this is what you need to do. And tell them how to get it done.
Yes. That's
right.
And we
That's
kind of overextend those boundaries and we
Yes.
say, well, you know you can fix this situation. Why don't you, my son, he can handle this. Hey, look, he's going to take care of this situation. But she didn't do
that's
that,
right.
That's
That's
And so
right.
I can see her kind of reserving herself. I mean, it was kind of a subtle thing. She said, well, whatever he say,
say
do,
do
do
it.
whatever he
says,
says.
do what he
So
says.
she's saying he has the power, really.
Right.
But she's
Exactly.
just using that influence to say,
Exactly.
come on, I know what's in you. Everybody else doesn't, but I do.
But
That's
I
right.
do.
Right.
I know what he can
Right.
do.
And I think we do that a lot as moms. So let's talk a little bit about sheroes. Does anybody have people in life, your heroes, people that you look up to, that you think of when you think of power? In the Bible or any
My
relationship?
favorite hero is Deborah.
Ah,
The
yeah.
prophetess.
I think she's so cool.
Yeah.
Deborah is just cool,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just a bad woman, and she knew where she was. She knew her place. She knew she had power, but with her power came humility. And when you've got power, there should be some humility
Yes.
as well, so that you're not overbearing with this power.
Right.
Here's a woman who was a prophetess. Here's a woman who's judging. Here's a woman who's got courage. And everybody knew she had the courage. So she's got all these things, and a husband.
Right.
She's got all of these things, but yet she had this humility that I don't need a big office to judge folk. I'm going to sit underneath this tree, and I'm going to judge, and I'm going to have you bring your problems to me, even to the point where others understood the courageous woman she was, for even a man to see the courage and come to her. It's not chauvinistic. It was just that he could see she was very special. And so I saw that in her, but she didn't flaunt it. And it's important to know that you got power. And it's good to have power, to know it, but you don't have to in your face.
Right.
Yeah, and mine is Esther.
Oh, yeah.
And Esther was a little lost at first. She got hung up, caught up, and I think sometimes we get caught up.
Yeah.
When we're in situations where we have access or we have things, we get caught up in those things. But when she was called to do, she did what needed to be done. When Mordecai said to her, "I need you to make sure that the people, the Jews, are not killed because." They are going to be. She was strategic in making sure that, is it Haman? Haman was in the room and asked the king for her wish to be granted, which was to save her and her people. And if I perish, I perish. And so oftentimes I think of situations that I may be in or you may be in where people may ridicule you for standing up for something. Or you may even put your life in danger because you believe and you want to go after, you want to support someone. That's power. So for me, Esther, she's my girl.
Yeah, yeah. Timing was everything
Yes,
for her.
yes.
Just her sensitivity to timing and when to exert power and when not to, and just that whole process. It was just awesome.
Yep.
What would you say?
Well, the two of you pulled up the ones I like. We did talk about Mary. But as you were speaking, and I was trying to just think really hard of women maybe even outside of the Bible. And I think for some reason what crossed my mind is I think of the women who work in our church. And I think of the ones that are low-key and quiet. They make things happen behind the scenes that you don't know. They're doing these things behind the scenes. You know, then I go back to the Bible, and I'm thinking of the women who are doing things behind the scenes that are supporting the disciples and making sure that their needs are taken care of. And I think a lot of times people will confuse power with I must be in the position with the
Yes.
title,
Yeah,
and I
that's
must be the
good.
one that's seen,
Yes.
and I must be the one that's up front.
Absolutely.
And not really take into consideration that in order for the body to work in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Romans chapter 12, the body has many parts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And all of them must work together for the body to work. There are so many people that are, in our churches that are doing things behind the scenes, women that are, the little things. Somebody sitting in the accounting department, sitting in there counting all the money when it comes in. When we have events and food is being prepared, that I don't think that we really consider that there is a power in understanding I'm good at this thing.
Yes, yes.
I'm good
Right.
at this one thing that I know how to do that no one else does. I do this and I do this well, and I can take pride in I do this one thing. And there's a power in knowing I'm good at this. God made me this way, and even if I don't have all the big title and I'm not seen in front of everybody, I can do this one little thing and help the body continue to work.
Yeah.
And so, again, as you all were speaking, I started to think, okay, now I need a turn. I got to come up with somebody very famous and important in the Bible. And then I started thinking about all of the women in the Bible who supported all of the men
Absolutely.
in the
Yeah.
Bible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's powerful because
That
in so
is.
many parts of the Bible, the women being the first at the cross,
Yeah.
the first, there's so many firsts
That's right.
Absolutely.
that they were there when
Right.
nobody else was.
Exactly.
So, and to me, that's power. That undergirding and
Right.
that
Yes.
supporting. It's like, what's the word, under row, to be able to support and to stand up under. And there's so many favorites. I don't know if I could pick just
There's a
one.
lot of 'em.
Of course, I like Abigail.
Oh, yes.
She's just, I like it because you look at the story with her, and she's married to Nabal, and he is a fool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think and that's his name.
That's his
But as
name.
we look at the story, we realize that I think of that as the example of she was attached to foolishness, but she didn't act a fool.
Right. That's right.
So,
Unlike
but
the
she,
stuff you
and
see
she
on TV.
used
Unlike the stuff you see on TV.
right. No. So it wasn't.
Yeah.
She was. There was a lot of drama going on,
Right.
and I think you could tell she had power, even though she wasn't the head of the household. Because when the servants came and said, "Oh, you don't know what he's done now. He's master done really messed up," and she was able to get them to act just at her command, to get the
Yes.
food together, to get
Yes.
the donkey and everything
Yes.
together,
Get
and to
everything
get, and
together.
then she was able to affirm. And I think too often we think power, you're right, has to be in a position, or we think it has to be in an action. But sometimes power can be in words.
Right.
And so she used words to encourage. And I think as women, the power of the tongue is one of the things that I think is abused by us as women, that we have the power to speak life
That's right.
to
That's
so
right.
many situations, power to encourage, power to spur people on to do
Yes.
incredible things. And we also have power to kind of tear people
Tear
down,
too.
at the same time. So I think that when we talk about power, there's so many ways we have kind of perverted power, but that's not what God intended. And so when I look at the story of Abigail, She's one of my favorites when you look at how she handled the situation. And she, just like Esther, had this thing about timing.
Right.
Because when she got back home, she didn't tell him what she'd done
Right.
because he was
Right.
drunk and he'd
Right.
been
Right.
partying.
Right.
She decided she would wait just for the right moment to tell him. And then God handled that thing.
Yeah, they took God.
And the higher power just
Yeah.
took him right on out.
Right.
That's right.
And then she ended up marrying David.
David,
I was
yes,
like, that was
yes.
just a good story. So,
Abigail had power of wisdom.
yes.
Right.
The power of wisdom. And if you're always looking in Proverbs, it addresses wisdom as she.
Oh, female.
right.
That's right. That's
Well,
true.
that's excellent.
So wisdom is what women need in order to have power.
Absolutely.
She had enough wisdom to say, if I go to talk to my husband about it, he's going to stop me from going.
Right.
So she didn't tell him. All her concern was is saving him.
Right. And saving everybody else.
The whole household.
And
The
everybody
whole
else.
household.
So humility was there as well with Abigail. It was when she got off the horse and bowed down to David.
Humility.
Is when his antennas went up and said, I'm onto something here. Because of humility. It says a lot about us women if we can have humility and wisdom.
Yeah.
Power in that.
There's power in that.
That's power
There's a
right
lot of
there.
power in that.
You can get a lot from your husband.
When
if
you
just-
ask the right
You
way.
asked the right way. Just got to frame that question.
You
right.
got to bring that humility in there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's the way you ask.
Oh, it's the way you ask.
Yeah, and timing is everything.
It is. Time is important.
All day long.
That's good. That's good. Let's take this to a personal level. We talked a little bit about scriptures, but let's take a look at our lives. Can you think of situations or times in your life where there's kind of been a little power struggle for you, dealing with power either internally or situations externally? Anybody can start.
I would say one of the biggest struggles I had was when I came home. And being the control freak that I am, A-type personality, I'm used to being in control. My time, my money, every decision, I'm used to being in control of all of those things. And when I made the decision to come home and be a mom, there was a struggle because, and it wasn't because of my husband. He wasn't the problem. It was my problem. It was I was the problem
yeah.
because I thought because I had a title, because I did this kind of work, then that gave me, for me, a false sense of power. That I was an executive and I could do all of these things. Once I came home, I think there was a part of me that thought, well, now I have to be this very humble and meek and mild, quiet, church mouse-like wife, because I had stepped away from what I thought was my power, not realizing that God was just taking me into a different season, that he was giving me a different kind of power that my husband actually honored more than when I worked. And he saw it was greater that I was willing to give up what I had worked so hard for before to instead just focus only on the kids. And I didn't see that, but he did. And he did everything he could to make sure he always encouraged me, and he helped to empower me.
Yeah.
He really, really did. And so I didn't really think about how important the job I had in terms of raising my kids was. My husband had to help me see that. But I really struggled because I really equated power with my job title.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we make that mistake versus realizing my power is coming from God.
It is true.
He is the one working through me.
Right.
Whatever I had, he gave it to me. Whatever I'm going to get, he's going to give it to me.
Right.
I never looked at how God was using me to take care of kids.
Right.
All I could think of was, I have a title. And so that was my struggle. As you can tell, I'm way past that now. I'm so over that.
Well, I think for a lot of us, identity is really disconnecting and beginning to understand that who we are is not what we do.
Right.
Absolutely. That's it.
Yeah.
It's very true. I was in the same position. I've always had a corporate job, was director of nursing of a 600-700 bed facility.
That's a big job.
Had over 500 people that reported to me, and I was in control, so I thought. But when my challenge came was when my faith walk was challenged. That's when I felt the least powerful. That when my faith level was not where it should have been. When I really felt I can't do this. And when I didn't remember I can do all things through Christ, that's when I felt the least powerful. And I'm more powerful even now when it's heightened. When my faith is heightened. When I have that faith that God's going to do this.
Yeah.
That's when I feel power.
Yes.
My power does not come from tangible things. Tangible things don't bother me. What bothers me is what I feel in my soul that God is going to do this thing because He promised me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think my struggle, I told you I got married when I was 42. So, you know, I lived a long time on my own, did a lot of things I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it. And, you know, like many, I wasn't thinking about the marriage as much as I was thinking about the wedding.
The wedding.
Oh, wow.
And so when, you know, I woke up and said, okay, now I need to humble myself, or I need to check, or, you know, I'm making deals and I'm doing this at work and I'm coming home and I need to do what? Or you expecting me to fix what? You know, so just that was a struggle for me. Because, you know, I mean, if you've been by yourself for a long time, you kind of get used to yourself and the things that you do.
Yes.
And so, and I'll tell you, teaching the marriage enrichment class has helped me get clear about what marriage is. And so really, sometimes my struggle with power has been submission. It's been submission, true submission.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're not oh yeah, I'm gonna do it, but really being submitting to my husband and having as him as being head of the household.
Right.
And so, to be very transparent, it's at times has been a struggle because yes, he's very supportive and he does look to me for a lot of answers to questions. But if he wants to do X and I want to do Y, and it's nothing that's, you know, dangerous or anything,
Right.
I need to submit.
Right.
And that's been
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
a continuous struggle because I'm a powerful person
Right.
who happens to be a woman
Right.
and is under God's authority to do what I need to do in
Yeah.
terms of submitting to my husband.
Yeah. That's
It takes a
good.
powerful woman to submit.
Yes.
Well, I think there is power in submission. I think that people
that's
take
power
that word.
right there.
Yeah.
When you submit to your husband, now, when we're talking submit, we're not talking walk.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Right.
We're talking
Right.
submission.
Right.
There's power there. When I feel that when my husband asks me to do something, and even though I don't really want to do it, for me to be able to do it is power.
Right.
Because now I've overcome myself.
That's right. That's
I've
right.
overcome my attitude.
Yes.
I've overcome some things now. So it's power in submission. And you feel good about it. He feels good, and you feel good about
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
So we both win.
Right. I think that submission gets a bad rap. And I think that for us as women, understanding it to that depth
That's right.
gives us a better understanding of the power of submission. Because to be submissive doesn't mean that we let people walk all over us.
that does not.
But it makes me think about the fact that it's a yielding.
Yes.
I think it's a better
Yes.
way of looking
Yes.
at it.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like the lion tamer and the lion. You know, the lion is powerful, but
Right.
the tamer is able to get the lion to
that.
follow. And the
Right.
lion pretty much follows, but the
Right.
lion doesn't have to.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so, you know, we got to take this lion and make
Yeah.
it do what.
Yeah.
Don't bite them.
Exactly. But allow ourselves to understand that there is so much power in that.
It's power
when
in
we
that.
yield and allow God. Because to me, it's I get the visual of I move out the way so God can be in charge.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because if not, then I'm taking over and I'm taking a place that I'm in God's way.
Yes.
Because God is the one who really
Yes.
has all the power.
Yes.
And if He's the one who is the head and God is going, then He's the covering, then me moving out the way allows God to have free access.
That's right.
Can I tell you how powerful that just was in you? To be transparent enough to say that?
Yeah.
That was power. You just
Yeah.
exhibited power
Yeah.
by saying, I have a problem submitting. Not many people will do that
Yeah.
openly. But by you admitting that this is an issue, it can be fixed.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So that was power right there.
Yes.
I commend you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so
Yeah.
powerful.
Oh, well, as we get ready to wrap up, think about what would you say you feel most powerful or when do you feel most powerful and when do you feel least powerful? We'll just share a little bit on that as we get ready to close. Or what do you think is a true sign of power?
I would say, interesting enough,
Mm-hmm.
my day, and I never thought about it in terms of power.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is if I start my day without being in God's presence first,
Yes.
if I don't start my day with, my Bible study, my prayer, my just taking the time to really and truly try to humbly be face to face with God. If I do not do that at the beginning of the day, my day is a complete mess. And it's like I know I so draw on that power.
Yeah.
And even so much so, I've even noticed when my husband gets up before I do, I make sure I try not to interrupt him because then he's doing the exact same thing. And there's almost like I won't say a jealousy almost, but it's almost like you become very possessive of that time. And I always want to make sure because it's so valuable to me that I don't take that away from him.
Right.
And without it, I know I'm not powerful, and I just have to believe he's not either. And I
Right.
really need him to be real powerful
Right.
because I need him to go get a W-2. He need to have all the power all day long to go to
Yeah,
work. But I find I am least powerful when I am not spending time with God
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I said that before. It's when my faith walk is challenged. It's when I feel least powerful. And I got to tell you, this might not sound spiritual, but the man of God that I married gives me strength. He has given me strength. I feel that I can conquer anything because of him being with me, being a pastor, even when things get a little shaky there, he still gives me confidence. He's there to say, it's okay. It's going to be all right. Pray in the morning together before we go to bed at night. I'm having a headache about what's happening at the ministry.
Right.
He can lay his hands on me, and I feel power. I'm going to make it through this because of the union that the Lord has put together. That is power for me. The man of God that the Lord put in my life, away from my faith walk. But if I got faith, I can do it. I get strength from somewhere. It just comes.
Yeah. Pastor Dottie, you talked about Philippians 4:13 a lot, and that's my favorite scripture about strength. And so I talked about being unwavering. And so, when sickness comes
Oh, yeah.
or death happens or, you're dealing with someone else's sickness, people have said to me, I don't understand, why are you so calm? It's because I'm not listening to the noise. I'm focusing on God and what God has for me, and He brings me through things. So, you know, I'm a pretty steady person. I can get excited, but when noise happens around me, you know, my sister recently was dealing with cancer, and all I said to her was, you have to believe that he's going to heal you.
Right.
You have to believe and be confident, and that's where you'll get your strength and your power from. He has healed her from cancer. And so it's being unwavering. And for me, that's powerful. When I start letting people get in my head about stuff, it takes me off center. And that's when I get confused. And even though it may make human sense, medically, that something's wrong with you and this may happen, I believe that God has physicians and nurses and medicine. He has created that for our, so I don't let what science says get in my way. I am unwavering about what he can do. And even if he doesn't do what I want him to do, I know he is doing what's best for me.
Right. And I think for me, when I think about most and least powerful, a lot of it is my ability to submit to God. Because there are times when I feel like, oh, I don't have it, I can't do it, and God is calling me to do something. Or when I add more stuff that he didn't tell me to add to my schedule. That's when I feel the least powerful. When I've overextended myself, I haven't checked with God to see if this is okay, if that is okay. And I've let everything just kind of rule me instead of being in connection with God and letting him decide what's appropriate and what's the time for me to do. Because sometimes when he tells me things, he's telling me, but it's not necessarily for me to do it right then. So I think my biggest fear is that I'll be out of step with what God is calling me to do. And it's in those moments, I think, that I feel the least powerful, because I know I'm out of sync with where I'm supposed to be. And you're right. For me, it starts in the morning before the household gets up. If I rush through that, or if I oversleep and I skip that time, my whole day is an absolute mess. I can't. It's like there's a book where we read where there's a lifeline, where the winter gets so bad. I think this is emotionally healthy spirituality. But where there's a lifeline and there's so much snow that they can't see the way, so they tie the thing to the door and they tie it to the barn, and they got to hold this rope the whole way, because if they can't get back to the house. Well, that's how it is with me. If I'm not in the Word, if I'm not having prayer time, and lately what's really helped me more than anything else has been silence. Being able to have periods where I don't tell God anything, that I'm just listening, because that for me is such a challenge. To just be still is a challenge, but to listen is a challenge. So, but I think there's so much power in being able to do that when I can. It doesn't always work, but there's power there. So as women, we're ready to wrap up and close. What happens when we abuse power? Let's just close on that, because I ended up the session talking about Jezebel, because power has its good side and it has its bad side. And there are times where there are bad girls of the Bible, you know, Delilah, Jezebel, and they're bad girls in our world.
Oh, absolutely.
What would you say about that?
So, you know, we studied Sunday. We were studying Bathsheba, and I mean, a lot of people focus on David in that sin, but she, you know, there's some theologians that believe that she knew what she was doing when she was bathing and he saw her on the rooftop. But because of that act, because he took in a woman who was not his, and then orchestrated for her husband to be killed. His son died. There were so many things that happened, consequences to what he did. And so when we misuse power, I believe, you know, I see it in the workplace, when women rise to levels in authority in corporate America, they forget that they once were at the bottom of the totem pole and needed support and help. I think that it comes back in some kind of way or form. We may not see the consequence that they're experiencing, but it's my belief that it does happen. Maybe they don't get as far as they could have. Maybe something happens within their family life that causes them strife. We don't know, because we don't know what path they had taken. But I think when people lose sight of, first of all, your job is your ministry, and that you should be in the workplace to minister unto other people.
This is true.
then we abuse. I think we abuse our power.
Yeah.
I think when we go into work and we're not thinking about, Lord, what can I do today to serve you? We're abusing our power.
When it becomes self.
When it becomes self.
Self-promotion.
I would add, as I think about Jezebel and the negativity in terms of how she just orchestrated so many evil things to happen, and for that to go on to the next generation. And so, Ahab was able to realize some of the stuff that she was doing was bad, and he humbled himself before God, like, okay, what we just did is shouldn't have had that man killed, shouldn't have taken his property. Okay, I'm gonna just walk around my head down, I'm gonna be in sackcloth, and I'm sorry. And God allowed the punishment that he was supposed to get to pass on to the son instead. I see a lot of the negativity as it affects the next generations, your family. I've seen women do some things in terms of abusing their power, abusing their position, doing some things that they ought not to do to other people because they assume they have this power. And I'm watching all kinds of crazy things become visited on their children.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you think you've gotten away with something, but you keep forgetting God sees every single thing. He is so complete. Did you forget he's like everywhere?
Yeah.
He sees all of that. And so it may not affect you directly, but how about this? It will come on your children, which I think as a mom, when you see things happen to your children, that hurts you more.
Yes.
And so I think one of the things I hope and pray that I don't ever become a Jezebel, but I can't say that I've never been one, but I pray to God I never do anything else like a Jezebel.
Yeah.
Jezebel need to be saved.
She need Jesus.
Yeah. She had an idol problem.
Jezebel.
She had an idol problem.
And it all starts with the renewing of your mind.
Right.
When your mind is renewed, you think differently. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Once your mind is renewed, you act differently.
Right.
You think differently. The power that you have, now you realize where you're actually getting this power from. I would think even with Oprah Winfrey, who is one of the most powerful women in the world, the fact that she cannot openly call on the name of the Lord Jesus in her environment, there's a problem there. Because I believe that she should be able to stand up and say, I got enough money now, let me talk about Jesus. You know. But I believe that once you have accepted him as your Savior, nothing is going to stop you from living the way he wants you to live. Your mindset changes. You don't want to abuse people. You don't want to treat people badly. Even when they treat you wrong, you'll try to find a way to get around that because you have a renewing of your mind, a transformation of your mindset. So I think if Sister Jezebel had Jesus at that time, she may not have been so evil. Because that's the word for her.
Yeah, and
Evil.
controlling. You know, I mean, she controlled that whole household. You know,
Everybody.
Everybody. So and could
everybody.
use fear as a weapon.
Yes.
You know, I think the negative side of power is she used fear as a weapon against people, and she just took whatever she wanted. And I think if we really think about it, we all probably have had some Jezebel moments.
Oh, yes.
We may not stay there long, but being able to see it and recognize it for what it is and to understand the consequences makes a big difference. But we're so glad that you guys could join us today. We've talked about power from the backyard to the boardroom. Power, women have it. How are you going to use it? Are you going to use it for your own good? Are you going to use it for God's glory? Be blessed and be powerful.